Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary. Now, in anticipation for the release of Pokemon Violet/Scarlet, I've been watching something called Pokemon Kaizo Ironmon. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the concept, it's a modded version of Pokemon that increases the overall difficulty of the game. On top of that, almost every aspect of the game is then randomized. The rules, however, are what intrigue me the most. In order for a successful run to be considered quote-unquote valid, requires players to abide by a certain set of rules. These determine what items can be used, how they can be used, which Pokemon are banned, how players can handle wild encounters, and more. And it's all done by the honor system. The Kaizo Ironmon runs of Pokemon arguably turned the game into an extremely difficult roguelike. And of course, I've been wanting to code my own version. But the amount of content and data required to make a Pokemon clone is very overwhelming. So I'm starting with the very basics just to see if it's even worth the effort. Now, before we begin, fair warning, if you're unfamiliar with the typical Kaizo Ironmon experience, this may be confusing and I apologize in advance. Regardless, if you still enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode, and with that, let's get to the code. So first, this is what we're working with. I've boiled down the gameplay into 4 parts: wild encounters, shopping, healing, and battles, each condensing multiple different elements into their respective areas. Let's begin with the overworld code. Navigation-wise, the player can move between the 4 options using left and right key checks. The confirm key will then initiate one of the 4 events and switches the world state. The first is wild encounters, which shares a lot of the same code as battling. Wild encounters, however, will generate a pool of quote-unquote wild monsters that the game will then choose from, which is done via monster constructor with an array of data. The data includes values for health, attack and defense, and a luck rating. During the wild event, the player can choose to attack, which triggers the damage function for both the player and enemy. This function maps out the remains from the attacker's attack value and the target's defense, which is then dealt to the target with a minimum of 1 damage. If the player's monster is knocked out, the game is over, and if the enemy is knocked out, the game is over, because wild battle grinding is against the rules in Kaizo Ironmon. The player can also heal their monster mid-battle if they happen to have heals on hand. And to keep things simple, each heal is a full heal. Next is the catch function, assuming that the player has balls to spare, just to add some unpredictability to the event, both monster and enemy roll. If the player is successful and the enemy is not, the capture is successful, else the player's monster may take damage. The catch function itself simply replaces the player's current monster with the newly caught monster. The monster pool is then deleted and a counter is set. More on that in a bit. And a ball is consumed either way. The final action is to run, which will immediately end the encounter, returning the player to the overworld screen. Now, the whole first event is meant to emulate searching grass patches for new monsters like one would in Kaizo Ironmon. Only this is all technically hypothetical since, there are no locations to divide the experience, which is where that little counter comes into play. In order to generate new wild encounters, the player must go through enough battles to lower that counter back down to 0. So while we're back in the overworld, let's go over the other 2 events. First, players can purchase balls with money, costing 5 money per ball. And just so they'd show up somewhere, there's a slight chance players will get a free heal item with each ball purchased. The heal event will not only restore the player's monster back to full health for free, but there's again the slight chance of earning a free health item in the process. And finally, we have the battle event, which will take us back to similar code used in the wild encounters. Now, the major difference is that players cannot catch or run during battles, just like in Pokemon. Also, a battle counter is set and monsters generated are completely random. The fight mechanics work similarly to the wild encounters. However, when an enemy monster is defeated, the game does not game over. Instead, the player's monster gains a level, their stats are then recalculated, and the battle counter is lowered by 1. When the battle counter reaches 0, the battle is officially over, money is awarded, a heal is potentially given, and the grass counter goes down by 1 before returning the player to the overworld. If there are remaining battles to be had, the player must continue to defeat these generated monsters until victory, or die trying. And just for fun, here's a quick look at the draw code that makes this all possible. So, after all of that, we're left with one question. Is this a viable project? Well, kind of. I will say that when boiled down to the very basics, this reminds me a lot of what I've witnessed watching Kaizo Ironmon. A lot of failure, but once in like 50 to 100 runs, something gets rolling. The largest challenges going forward would be the balancing. While by nature Kaizo is supposed to be near impossible, finding the right balance to allow for snowballing while avoiding a complete stomping is pretty tough and way outside my wheelhouse. There is definitely a lot more to it than just a simple recreation, and given Nintendo's track record, the less of actual Pokemon we use, the safer we'll be. So yeah, it's possible, but it would be one heck of a commitment and one I'm not sure anyone's ready for, including myself. So we'll just have to put a pin in this one for now. But if you would like to see this project continue, please let me know in the comments. Also, a quick reminder that I am now on Patreon if you would like to support the channel beyond watching the videos. Link can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.